There are a lot of unanswered questions about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. But one of the more interesting areas of interest is the question of whether or not he was actually shot. And after the FBI director, Christopher Wray, testified under oath in front of Congress that it could have been shrapnel that injured him, the only medical professional who claims to have tended to Trump's wound after he was released from the hospital, that is, Republican Congressman Ronny Jackson, appears to now be freaking out a bit on Twitter. I'll show you guys exactly what he said and give some more details about the story. Ronny Jackson is a Republican congressman from Texas who was the White House physician during the Trump administration. He's been criticized in the past for running a sort of pill mill where people didn't even need to have a prescription to get some pretty serious medication. And when Donald Trump was injured at his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, we did not see any medical records related to the treatment of that injury from the hospital or the doctors who treated him. The only records we've seen are from this guy, Ronny Jackson, who claims to have been tending to Trump's wound after the hospital released him. And those weren't even medical records that were released. It was a letter from Ronny Jackson's office that detailed his treatment of Donald Trump's wound after the fact. Look at this excerpt from it. I have been with President Trump since that time, and I have evaluated and treated his wound daily. He's doing well. As reported and witnessed by the entire world, he sustained a gunshot wound to the right ear from a high-powered rifle used by the would-be assassin. The bullet passed, coming less than a quarter of an inch from entering his head, and struck the top of his right ear. The bullet track produced a 2-centimeter wide wound that extended down to the cartilaginous surface of the ear. There was initially significant bleeding, followed by marked swelling of the entire upper ear. The swelling has since resolved, and the wound is beginning to granulate and heal properly. Based on the highly vascular nature of the ear, there is still intermittent bleeding requiring a dressing to be in place. Given the broad and blunt nature of the wound itself, no sutures were required. The Associated Press wrote an article that interviewed a former Secret Service agent and asked him to give his thoughts on what would happen if a bullet fired from a high-powered rifle whizzed right by your head, as per Ronny Jackson's letter. Look at this. Former Secret Service agent Rich Staropoli said the AR-15 style rifle used by the gunman fires a 5.56 millimeter bullet at such high speeds, over 2,000 miles an hour, that just the air pressure as it passes can cause extensive damage. The shockwave alone could have ripped his ear off, Staropoli said of Trump. It's amazing the bullet nipped him and didn't do any other damage. It's a 1 in a billion type of thing, he added. A fraction of a millimeter closer, and this would be a different story. It really is incredible the thin line here between just a nick and devastating bodily damage. So a 1 in a billion chance that Donald Trump did not sustain more injuries. So you have to understand why people are a little skeptical that Donald Trump was shot. I'm not saying he wasn't shot, but I understand why people would be skeptical. And it was just recently that the FBI director himself, Christopher Wray, testified under oath in the House that it could have been shrapnel that hit Donald Trump and not a bullet.
I think with respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that that hit his ear. So it's conceivable, although as I sit here right now, I don't know whether that bullet, in addition to causing the grazing, could have also landed somewhere else. But I believe we've accounted for all of the shots and the cartridges.
Now, Donald Trump could easily dispel these rumors by releasing the medical records from the hospital and the doctors that treated him there to show the extent of his injuries. But for some reason, this is all shrouded in mystery. And now Donald Trump Jr., his son, weighed in on Twitter, and he seems very upset by the FBI director's comments. Look at this. Don Jr. tweeted out the following in response to a Newsweek article, and he said, "This is really covering some ground, but Newsweek might be the most embarrassing news organization in the entire country. They constantly publish BS, but this is next level Trump derangement. They should be ashamed of themselves." Now, I expect this sort of response from Don Jr., who will stand up for his father no matter what is said. But what's interesting is to see Ronny Jackson, Again, the only medical professional who claims to have attended to Donald Trump's wound and has spoken about it publicly, freaking out over on Twitter. Look at his tweet about it here. In response to a tweet from Ryan Nobles, who's an NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent, tweeting about the FBI director saying that it could have been shrapnel that hit Donald Trump and not a bullet, Ronny Jackson said the following: "Absolutely irresponsible for Chris Wray to make such a statement as director of the FBI. Another politically motivated move by the man that has repeatedly weaponized his office to tear down President Trump. What little credibility he may have left is gone after recklessly suggesting Trump might not have been hit from a bullet. It was a bullet. I've seen the wound. Pathetic." Now, it's important to point out that FBI Director Christopher Wray was appointed by none other than Donald Trump himself after James Comey would not pledge his loyalty to him. So I find it rich that people accuse Christopher Wray and the FBI of pursuing Donald Trump when he's the one that appointed him. And Ronny Jackson wants us to just believe him because he's seen the wound. Well, I'm sorry. This is a major candidate to be president of the United States, one of two people that could be the next president of the United States of America. I think we have a good case as the American people to demand that these medical records be released so we can know the extent of Donald Trump's injuries. If it was just some sort of superficial wound that healed very quickly, then why not release the records and prove that? There could be damage, brain damage. He could have suffered a concussion, hearing loss. Who knows? But I think we have a right to know as the American people, and they could easily dispel these rumors by just releasing those records. But instead, they want us to take the word of some guy who handed out pills without a prescription during his time as White House physician. He also famously said that Donald Trump has incredible genes and could live to 200 years old if he just ate better. And this guy is a political ally of Donald Trump's. So throwing a temper tantrum on Twitter and not addressing the actual concerns, but instead getting upset that nobody believes you and you've seen it with your own eyes, is just not going to cut it. There are too many people out there saying that this is not what a gunshot wound from a high-powered rifle would look like, and these rumors are not going to go away. And forgive us, the American people, for not taking Donald Trump or Don Jr. or even Ronny Jackson at their word. These are people that lie all day long. So why wouldn't they lie about this incident as well? I hope they release more records and just dispel this rumor already. It's only going to lead to more problems for Donald Trump, his campaign, and everyone that is making up excuses around him. Let's see what happens. The fact that the FBI director was willing to say under oath that it could have been shrapnel, that's not a good sign. So hopefully more information comes out soon.